All right, everybody, we're back for another episode today of Brushing Them Back with Colby White. Like I said, Colby's still chasing the dream. He's doing that minor league thing right now, so he won't be with us today. But today, I get the opportunity to speak to two amazing guys with an unbelievable cause. Um, it was going. Nate Dome is going to be one of our guests. If you're a Mississippi State guy or a Ball State guy or a Indiana high school fan, you know who he is. And then we didn't want his dad to feel left out because, as we were talking before we got started, he's the numbers guy. He's going to provide y'all with some statistical information that's going to be really interesting, especially when we get to talking about the actual main topic at point. We're going to get an opportunity to catch up with Nate, see how he's doing, and we also can get a chance to chat with his dad today. So we'll go ahead and bring them on. Today's guests, Stephen and Nate Dome.
How you doing?
Got a little lag going on here with that internet, Dave. I apologize for that. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic, man. I wish you guys could have checked us out before we went live. Nate came up. We were doing some sound check and couldn't see his face because all I saw was a gallon jug of water. He claimed he'd been out working hard trying to rehab or whatever he was doing. I told him it's just that Mississippi humidity is what it is. He said he's been here a little over a year. He's still not used to it. So, guys, how are we doing today? We're doing well. Can't thank you guys enough for being on the show. Let's start off first of all. A lot of Mississippi State fans are going to check this video out, and they're worried about Nate Dome because the last time they saw the Dominator, you had to get it in early today. The Dominator was leaving the field with an injury. All right. Well, it wasn't as bad as we originally thought. We were really concerned when you walked off the field. It wasn't quite as bad. Why don't you give us an update where we're at, Nate? Like, where the progress coming back?
Yeah, so that was a really scary moment there. But thankfully, it was just a strain, forearm strain, pronator strain. And I took a week off, and then I started ramping back up, and I was able to come back at the end of the season. And it didn't feel perfect then, and I took some time off throwing wise after the season, and now it's really back to where it was before. I couldn't feel better, and we're back working hard. We got a lot of guys back this summer, and we're working really hard in the weight room to get in better shape and build on some muscle and get ready for this next year.
Well, guys, you heard it. Nate just said he's going to deliver a national championship, and he's coming back throwing 115 miles an hour. I'm excited to hear that. And if he didn't say that, that's what I read between the lines and got. So that's where we're at for the State fans. Steve, first of all, don't want you to feel left out. Glad you could make it on here today. You're the numbers guy. We were talking about that earlier. But first thing I want to know, go ahead, and I know he's on here with you, but go ahead and gush a little bit about Nate. I mean, first of all, I know you're super proud of what he's done to this point. Absolutely. But tell us a little bit about little Nate, and I'm going to go ahead and share this since you shared it with me earlier. You said at birth the kid weighed 11 pounds. So he's never been little Nate, but he's younger Nate. How was younger Nate growing up?
Well, a couple. Give me a little bit of a chance to embarrass him a little bit.
Let's do what we can. Let's do what we can.
11 pounds, 1 ounce. He's always been intense. I would say that's something that he's never had. He'd get up early in the morning and when he was real little, and he'd want things done just a certain way. And if I didn't get it done right, it was I would hear about it. And it speaks to how intense he is. I think he's grown, he's matured, and he's probably less intense when he's not on the mound. But he's a true bulldog on the mound, and it's a different kid. And so yeah, it's been awesome. It's been great watching him grow up and thrive and doing great. So we're happy he's chasing his dream.
So there's not a whole lot of difference between 9-year-old Nate and 19-year-old Nate.
No,
he thought he was grown very early in life.
Yeah, he when he was 9, we moved around a lot, which I think influences the kind of individual he is today. But we'd go and we were involved in travel ball, and it was nothing for him to come home from a travel ball tournament, and he'd go right back out and start throwing the ball up against the house. It was all baseball all the time. We spent so much time at batting cages and in the front lawn, playing, fielding, pitching, hitting. It was all baseball all the time. I still, as we were talking about this with my wife Amy, we were talking about it, and it just took me back through memory lane, and man, it was a good ride. It's just been so much fun watching him compete and grow. We're super proud of him.
Well, you mentioned travel ball. Now, you said you moved around quite a bit. Now, did you guys live in what would be considered urban areas or rural areas or a mix of both?
Yeah, both. So he started baseball. We were in the western suburbs of Chicago. I would call that more rural. And then we moved to near Lexington. And it was pretty rural. He did Little League and then started travel ball, and then we relocated to the south side of Chicago. And I would say it was rural, but it was not that far away from being urban. And I would say that's really where he started to be involved in travel ball. And then we moved. I grew up in Indiana. We moved back when he was in middle school. And then he got involved with the Indiana Bulls organization, and that's high level travel ball organization. And that's when he went through, did the PBR futures.
Okay, yeah.
Games. Did I get that right?
But yeah, I think it is called PBR futures.
Yeah. So then got offered an opportunity to play at Ball State, and now Mississippi State.
So as he was coming up, you coached him at some point during his baseball career. You entrusted him to other individuals to try to guide him to the promised land, or how'd that work out?
Yeah, I would say I coached. I mean, I don't know. I could do the basics, but I was never. I wouldn't say I was a great coach. I enjoyed the time we spent together, but I would say at 12, I was like, this is beyond what I can do. And so we transitioned, and I let the more experienced people take over. So,
okay. So the freakish athletic ability he's got,
his mother
came from his mother. Okay. So his mother was the athlete in the family.
No,
he's Nate. I didn't even finish the statement. Nate's over here shaking his head. No. All right. So he wasn't a freakishly talented athletic kid from birth. So y'all had to mold him into that. So,
yeah.
Nate, tell me a little bit about how that was. Like, I mean, I made a joke earlier before we got started about it. It looked like you climbed off the video game and came out to the sunshine for the first time.
Yeah.
On the photo that it was shared with me, but I mean, how was that? I mean, I know you had to have enjoyed. Well, let me back up a second. You played so much baseball growing up. What other sports did you play?
Yeah, so I never played football, but I was into basketball, but I was never really that great at it. And I was never really that big to where I was able to perform super well at basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like going back to when I was a kid, I always had a good arm. I always was able to throw a ball hard, throw a ball far. But I was never. I as we got older, I wasn't as big as some people were at my age. And when I moved over to the Bulls, the Indiana Bulls, they introduced me to Sean Laird, who I've been going to since I was in 8th grade. And when I got there, when I started working out with him, I was probably around 140 pounds. And his big thing was just mass is gas. So we just did a lot of work on trying to get me bigger, faster, stronger. And that allowed me to really just work on becoming a better athlete overall, because there was definitely a couple of years where I was a smaller kid, but I also just wasn't like one of the better players on my team. I was on the team, but I wasn't one of those standout guys. And so then going to him, I was able to really work on becoming more of a standout athlete, I would say. And that was pretty much the process right there.
You were a two-sport guy, but baseball, you finally gravitated to baseball full time. And if you're playing travel ball, and then did you play like youth league and rec league and all that kind of stuff too, or did you concentrate just on your travel ball journeys?
Yeah, I played youth league. I played little league in Kentucky, and then I went on to travel. But then when we moved to Illinois, I went back to little league for a year, and then back to travel. And then from then on, it was just travel.
So, Steve, you guys tried to keep up the travel ball for how long? Like through junior high, all the way into high school? Or?
Oh, yeah, all the way into high school. I mean, he went to it was at Fort Myers, but he did the Jupiter Perfect Game World Tournament. Team Indiana came in 6th place. So, yeah, they did. Yeah, we traveled. We spent a lot of time at Lake Point. Not far from where we live here in Indianapolis. There's Grand Park, the 28 field. So we were a little spoiled. There were some pretty big tournaments here in the Indianapolis area. But yeah, went to Florida. Went to Lake Point a lot. We spent a lot of time at Lake Point, and yeah, it's what you do. I mean, it's. I was talking with our daughter about, hey, I'm kind of glad we're not traveling. I wouldn't give those years away, but it is certainly nice to be able to go and play putt at home and sleep in your own bed. So
right.
Yeah, we don't miss those.
You're getting back into it now because you're traveling a little bit now, especially since he's made it to college. And if he's fortunate enough to make it to the next level, you'll be traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate. There's some good people down in Starkville who have taken us in. Nate's Starkville parents, Tammy and Carl. So we stay with them, and we're fortunate to have them. So when we are able to get down there and see them, we've got a place to stay. But yeah, we try to get down. I think we'll be down there more often. So this next year. So we're excited for the season.
Well, good. Maybe we'll stumble across each other in person then, because like I said, I try to make as many of the games as I can. Also, Nate, how many years did you have to play baseball before you were the best guy on the field? Come on, you can brag on yourself a little bit. Fellow throw as hard as you are. I mean, come on, man.
I think
it would have been.
You said something earlier, kind of threw me off. You said. I wasn't the best athlete in the world, but I kind of
sophomore year of high school, I would say. My travel team. I would say I was probably the best player on that team.
And how old were you at that point?
What, 16?
16 years old.
Yeah, and I would say there were some years. There were some years that were in there that he wasn't on the highest competitive travel team early. He was pretty good. I maybe not the best, but pretty darn close. I mean, there were up in Chicago, but certainly by the time his sophomore year, he was definitely, at least on the mound, he was different. It was very different in high school.
All right, so travel ball, you played ball all the way up through junior high and everything else. About what would be an average season for you, games played between everything you were doing in the season?
Wow, I haven't even thought about that. I'd say, well, in high school, we would have around 30-ish games in high school, and then you would go and play in probably six tournaments. So you'd say probably around 60, 65, 70 games total in a year.
Yeah, I would say 50 innings. I would say for a season, 50 innings.
50 to 60 innings, yeah. I'd say that's probably right.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at total games played. Now, let me ask you a question. Besides pitching, were you a position player also?
Yeah, I was up until my sophomore year of high school. I played third base, first base. But when I was younger, I was more of an outfielder just because I could throw the ball really far.
So most of your travel ball stuff, you logged quite a few innings in.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, how do you, first of all, I understand why you would do that, but do you feel like in retrospect, you were at one point playing a major league baseball season and, games played when you were 12 and 13, 14 years old? I mean,
yeah,
first of all, you got to be in phenomenal shape, but also that's a lot of wear and tear on the body.
for sure. But even at that age, you're really not thinking about it like that. You're just having fun with your buddies and you're playing the game that you love. And that's what I think sometimes can get lost at this level.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you're struggling, I think that can happen. But what it comes down to is kind of finding that love for the game again. And you got to really think about it with that perspective that you're playing this game because you love it. You're not just playing it because you're looking for money or you're looking for everything else. You're looking for that opportunity to go out with your best buds and play a game that you love and have fun while doing it.
That's a very good answer. As a matter of fact, that's one of the best answers I've ever gotten because I've asked that question in various ways to certain people. Steve probably just didn't realize that you probably logged 100, games worth of, games played in a season. He's like, now that I think about it, yeah, he did. That's a lot of innings. So
it was
the pitcher only option when you started going pitcher only. That was a blessing or a curse? Did you miss playing the position?
That was against my own will. I wanted to keep hitting, but my high school coach kind of was like, well, we don't. Well, it was kind of awkward at first because I was on JV hitting, but then I was pitching on varsity. And he kind of was like, all right, you need to just stop hitting. So I just pitched on varsity my sophomore year. And then after that, he just pretty much went with – I lost my junior year because of COVID. And then senior year, he didn't want me to get hurt playing a position. So – because we had a deep enough roster on my high school team that I didn't have to play in the field.
You were a young graduate or an older graduate? Like I know your birthday hinges.
Kind of the middle, I'd say middle ground.
He's young, January.
Okay. So you were what when you graduated high school? How old were you?
18.
Had you made 18 years old then?
18.
Just barely, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of, the reason I ask that is I see a lot of kids, especially if they're extremely talented. I mean, they'll hold a kid back or they'll somewhere down in the third or fourth grade, they'll hold them back just so they'll get that extra year in. I've never understood that myself, but like me, for example, I know I'm 200 years old now, but I was 17 years old when I graduated college. I had a complete semester of college in before I turned 18 years old. So, and that, it's not that it affected my ability much. I'd hurt my shoulder my senior year, so my pitching career was over. But still, maybe another year would have helped me. I don't know. That's why I was curious about how old he was because, he throws extremely hard. That's why I'm shocked that Steve. I just assumed you were like a flamethrower from back in the day. So now I find out your wife is the athlete. So he is the horrendous faces that he is making. I mean, golly, I try to give Steve a little shine, and Nate is having a fit over here.
No, it was. It was funny. I look back and just thinking about the times that we were in the batting cage in Richmond, Kentucky, and I'd be throwing and he'd be hitting, and I'd hit him, and he'd look at me with disdain, and I was like, dude, I don't get paid to do this. I mean, you're gonna get hit. Toughen up a little bit. No, I'm not.
Nate, he was preparing you. Hit by pitch is part of the game.
For sure, exactly.
Well, I mean, what do you care? You don't swing a bat anymore anyway.
It's not my problem.
That's a crazy idea. Tell Lamonis you want to DH in some of your off rotation. Yeah, see how that works out.
No chance I'd make the lineup.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your high school career. I mean, you were pretty good. I mean, let's just be honest. You were pretty good. Where like for example, your junior and senior year. Well, first of all, let me back up a second. When did the recruiting cycle start for you? And if you tell me they were recruiting you in the 7th grade,
no,
the beginning of my sophomore year season of high school. That's when
Okay.
I first talked to a coach, and
Okay.
then really picked up in that summer. It really picked up, and then kind of all came together with the future games.
Mhm.
Pitched in front of a fair amount of teams there, and then talked to Ball State, and I had been talking to them previously, and then that was when I had made that decision.
Okay. You said your junior year in high school was COVID year, right? That's when they the world shut down your junior year.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
we traveled that summer, like travel
Mhm.
ball. We traveled, but yeah, he lost his
Okay.
junior year.
Yeah, I mean that you think that adversely affected your chances or it helped? You got a little more rest on the arm or
I think that I think maybe mentally it was more of a challenge than anything. I think it was just that was a really 2020 was a really hard year mentally, just with a lot of things that went on that year. But I think that for me physically, I mean, I was still able to do workouts and stuff. I was out pushing my parents' car around and doing hill sprints with one of my buddies, and I mean, I was still able to do a lot of stuff, and then I ended up getting to play in the summer. So I feel like it was kind of a push physically, but I think mentally it was more of an advancement in that regard.
you also said Ball State was pursuing you and you made the decision to go there. Now, I don't know if this is a topic we want to talk about, and we don't have to if you don't want to, but how big of a jump was it from high school to college?
Yeah, college. It's a different game. It really is. There's high school. There's the balls have higher seams. It's easier to grip the balls. Um, and I was actually at that point I had gotten really big and I was almost too heavy in my body. Well, I wasn't able to move my body as well, and I had a really rough fall my freshman year, and I was not at the standard of what I should have been, and I worked a lot that semester and into the next one on losing weight, and I lost about 30 pounds. And that was just huge for me to be able to move my body how it needs to and be efficient with my delivery and efficient with um, my arm path and everything. And I saw a big jump in velocity, and then I was fortunate enough to get a good amount of innings on that team, and I was able to really develop because I was able to fail. I mean, that's what a lot of it was. I mean, failing is a big part of this game. You have to fail so you know what not to do, and you have to learn what you need to get better at, and failing is a part of that. And I think that I learned a lot about that my freshman year, and that was a big piece for me.
Did you kind of breeze through high school? I mean, you did good grades. You know, the jock. You were the jock group. You know,
No,
everybody loves a jock. So
I wasn't in the jock group. I was
come
I
on
was
now.
buddies with everybody, but like
Uh,
it really was pretty. I would say, if anything, I was more just kind of. I had few really close friends, and then other than that, I mean, I really didn't talk to a whole lot of people. I was doing my own thing, going and working out with Sean, and that was really all I was concerned with. Um, and I mean, I felt like I got good grades, and then going into college, I think balancing everything became an issue in college, and it was definitely a struggle for that first semester of freshman year was definitely really tough to balance the school aspect and the baseball aspect together.
I
yes.
I think I would add. He says going to Sean's, and he knows he knows what that is. What people don't really understand is it's a 45-minute drive from his eighth grade till he got his driver's license, and we did it 3 to 4 times a week. And so it was an hour and a half of commitment on I mean, my wife went, but it was we spent a lot of time together in the car.
Yeah.
So it was a huge commitment. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know how committed he was at the beginning. But I think I'd like to say that I like to think that the commitment that I made to him and his development, and the commitment that Amy made. I mean, I wasn't. There were times I wasn't around, so dinners and things like that. So it's the commitment that his mother and I made to his development. I hope it's paid off in his work ethic. I mean, I certainly see it. I'd like to say it plays a little bit of a place there, but yeah, it was a commitment. It was a commitment.
Right. Well, and that's one point I was trying to bring in when I was talking about his transition to college. You know, they say the 7th grade, the 9th grade in secondary school, and then freshman year in college. You know, a lot of kids don't survive those. They melt under pressure. So, well, now that we've talked about your freshman year at Ball State, let's dig a little deeper. Let's see what we can get going on here. How would you rate your Ball State experience as a whole?
I think that there was a lot of learning. I think that was, for me, that was a big part of it. A lot of learning and learning a lot about myself, and that was I went into college and I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know I really didn't know what I was doing, you know, and I think a lot of my freshman year was spent learning a lot about myself and what I want to do and who I want to be, and I think that provided the perfect opportunity for me to learn a lot about myself and to better myself, and come out of it stronger. But yeah.
Steve, I didn't even think to ask this earlier. Nate, siblings?
He has a younger sister, Maddie. She graduated high school this spring, and she'll be going off to the University of Evansville this fall.
Okay.
So we are empty nesters.
Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming that she looked up to Nate as an example of a perfect student, a perfect gentleman, and
No,
they fought
I
like
mean,
cats and dogs, didn't they?
I would say that she definitely loves her brother. They were really good kids. I mean, they played well together, and they you know, a lot of times siblings will fight. Like I fought with my sister
Right.
some, but they were really close in age, and they kind of were best friends growing up, and we moved around a lot, and I think that drove them closer together. But yeah, I mean, Maddie, she's been down there. She's been to state. She loves going to games. She loves seeing her big brother play. I mean, she gets excited about stuff. I think State just put out a big video, and he made a couple appearances in it, and she was right there cheering from him. So cheering for him. So yeah, she loves her brother. So.
Well, a half an hour into this conversation, I've learned one thing: the Dome ladies are powerful.
For sure.
Yeah, we should also have your wife on. Give her a little shout out. We appreciate you talking. I tell people all the time. I know when my children were playing sports, I was the one. And I tried not to be. I tried not to yell and scream and give direction and all that. I was the dad that would sometimes you couldn't even see me. I was standing so far away. Like when my son played, he'd be pitching or something. I'd be so nervous. I'd be 50 yards away where he couldn't see me. And my wife was just the rock. She just hung in there. She was my kids' biggest fans, and she would be the one that nudged me and suggested I go to the other end of the bleachers because I was getting loud and obnoxious. So
yeah, I would say
your wife do that same thing to you, or was it the opposite? Was she amped up and you had to tell her to?
No, I think she used to be she'd be amped up. One of the things cool gift she did for Nate, his entire high school career, she kept book of every game he played in, and he's got 4 books of those entire seasons, of every pitch, every at bat, ever, like what happened. And she couldn't keep, it was hilarious because she started out and she didn't know the numbers of the positions, and so it was if it was a grounder back to Nate, and he had to put out, well, it was a 1-3 put out, and
That's right.
I was like, okay, that's 1-3, and what a backward K is, what a forward K is, and now she could keep up with the best of them. So
there you go. Well, she's had a lot of practice because you guys played a lot of games.
And I would say, yeah, I mean, we were always, I think we were very, we cheered. I would say moving from that coaching position to being dad was a little challenging, but I think after a season, we kind of, Nate and I talked about it, and he's like, yeah, we need to do something different, and so we did. And so
but that was at about 12 years old, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's when my wife banned. That's when my wife banned me from coaching too. She told me, she said, "You can spectate all you want, but you're not coaching anymore." I said, "Yes, ma'am."
I think the best advice I have that I ever came up with was when I was coaching was that it's really hard for a young kid to make that transition, especially somebody who's as intense as Nate. And we get in the car. And I would instantly, I learned the phrase, "Hey, I loved watching you compete today. I love watching you play baseball." And it was that it let the air out of the room in the car, right. Whether it was a win or loss or an error or whatever, is, hey, I really enjoyed watching you play. And I think that's one of the easiest ways I was able to do it. But I wasn't the best dad when it came time to making that change from coaching to coaching the fan. So
I'm the same way, man. That's what I'm telling you. It was rough. It was worse on me as a fan than it ever was on the field coaching.
And now I think it's worse because I sit at Duty Noble and I wear the I got the Apple Watch on there, and when he's pitching, I get alerts that hey, you're not moving and your heart rate's 145.
Yeah, so that's true. It is nerve-wracking.
Yeah. But it's because he's out there and he's completely composed, and you're just out of control. You don't have control. Right. And
because he's got ice water in his veins. Yeah, I know that because when they strike somebody out, they point to their arm. Yeah, there you go. Nate, how hard is that? I know. You when you're on the mound, do you even know where your parents are sitting and watching you?
Most times, yes. I try to look for them because I'd come into games later in the game, so I'd have some time to look around and see where my parents were, and but really in the moment I'm just thinking about me and the catcher and what to do, controlling the running game and anything like that. It's once you're out there, it's really just you're thinking about the game, and honestly, it's if you can get into that zone, the fans, you can kind of block out everything, and you're just on the field doing your job, and it's not as much as a distraction as it really fuels you, because you get a big strikeout and then the whole place erupts, and it's a really great feeling.
Well, I can't speak for Ball State because I've never been in the stadium there, but I know Duty Noble, when it's absolutely rocking, you couldn't hear your parents yelling at you anyway.
No. Yeah,
it's numbing. It's how loud it is. So
tell them what Coach Polk told you after one of the games
about.
Just about how you just played in front of more people than you would have ever played.
Yeah, but he was talking about how I wasn't just playing in front of my parents now, and I love Coach Polk. He's a character. Great guy. I love being able to be around him when we go on trips, and he'll come around and hang out with us during practice sometimes, and really just a genuine guy. I really enjoy being around Coach Polk.
All right, so when you went to Ball State, you felt like you kind of maxed out what you could get done at Ball State? Is that why you got in the transfer portal, or?
No, it was just not the right fit for me, and it was just I wanted I needed to take a new step, and I went into the portal, and I was really blown away by all the calls and texts I was receiving from different coaches. I didn't expect any of that, and that really I was just really blessed to be able to get the opportunity to talk to all these special programs, and to come down here on a visit, and I was just so blown away by everything. I I pretty much immediately then was like, yeah, this is the right place for me.
So that whole hashtag Start Vegas thing, that's real.
It is. It is. This
It's
place is.
insane. I tell people all the time when they think of Mississippi, there's a lot of misconceptions. You know, I joked earlier about all we have here is hillbillies and humidity. But the crazy thing is the college towns in this state are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even Hattiesburg, you know, with Southern Miss and at Oxford at Ole Miss. I mean, it's insane. I don't know that a baseball scenario could be any crazier than a Duty Noble SEC weekend, though. Especially if both teams are heavily, they're big, heavy in contention, and it's late in the season. It's absolute insanity. And of course, regionals and super regionals and all that. That's Mars or the moon compared to the Earth. So,
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, we're glad you made that decision. Tell us a little bit. I mean, sum up your experience to this point at Starkville in just 2 or 3 sentences.
Okay. Well,
Give us some of those catchphrases, those key words that, because I've heard 1,000 people explain what their experience is like, but I mean, you're standing on a mound in front of 15, 16,000 people, and by the time you come in a game, it's pretty insane. So
yeah, I'd say the first week I blacked out when I first got on the mound.
I've actually heard that reaction before.
And then, I didn't, because I came in with the bases loaded and 1 out, and I got a ground ball for double play, get out of it, and I didn't really even realize what had happened until I was off the field already, and I was like, whoa. And then after that, I started to get used to it a little bit. I mean, as much as you can. And then there was the Ole Miss weekend, and that's just that was. I don't even know how to describe how crazy that environment was, especially that Saturday game. That was, I'd say it's been like that game perfectly described it. Like, it was just a roller coaster of emotions. Came in, had a clean 8th inning, and then the 9th inning, giving up the lead like that was very frustrating. And then, but I mean, you have great teammates like Dakota who pick you up and help the team come out with a win like that. It was a really special experience.
What's the craziest visiting bullpen you've had in your college career at this point?
See, we didn't have a crazy. We haven't been to a super crazy place yet, I would say, but Alabama, they were definitely yelling at us a lot, I would say. I liked Auburn because we were kind of tucked in and there wasn't anybody around us, so we didn't have to deal with anybody. But definitely Alabama, they had a few people that were yelling at us. So it was pretty funny.
Well, we could sit and talk about baseball all day long, and we love to talk about baseball on the show. But there's a bigger purpose that we have Nate and Steve on today, and we're going to talk about that. Nate, you did something that you didn't. Did you check with anybody when you did this? When you made your awareness statement? First of all, for those that have no idea of what we're talking about at this point, Nate, tell them a little bit about what you went out on your own, didn't clear it with anybody. Tell them what you did.
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to get custom gloves this year and this past year, and and Coach Lemonis said that we could do whatever we wanted. He didn't care. So I was like, well, okay. I went through some designs and I was like, okay, these are fine. And then I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to customize it and make it however I want to, why not try to give it a purpose, So I went with teal for the myasthenia gravis awareness. And then I have a purple accent on there for Alzheimer's and dementia. I have that on there as well. And then I said, well, okay, you got to have some connection to Mississippi State on there. So then I put the maroon on there for the laces of it. And kind of just was like, all right, that's it. And then I think it's a bit of a flashy glove, but it's not to look flashy. It has that purpose behind it. It's not just trying to show off and look like that in that way.
The first press conference after you debuted the glove, or did it even, Yeah, because you kind of hid it from everybody until you actually got into some gameplay, didn't you? Like they didn't know about it ahead of time. So what was that first press conference like? I mean, were you being quizzed about? Because I mean, they were asking a lot of crazy questions. I know when you guys first started, but I mean, did you get some like, what the heck's going on with that glove, man?
Yeah, I had a few questions about what, like, why do that color, why teal, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to do it that way, so I could get that opportunity to explain why and tell my story about it. And um, it it I was very happy that it came out how it did, and I was able to to explain my reasoning behind it, and kind of help spread awareness.
Okay, you kind of you brushed over what the colors were and what it was for, but what was the inspiration behind the glove?
Yes. So my papa passed away in 2020, and he had myasthenia gravis, and I had never really. I just I it's just that's a tough that was really tough. That happened at the beginning of 2020, and um, I wanted the ability to have him and my grandmother, who passed away from, she had dementia. She also passed away in 2020, and I wanted to kind of dedicate a glove because I had the opportunity. I wanted to dedicate that glove to them, and um, that's why I really took advantage of us being able to customize the glove. But yeah, the glove is very special to me because it really represents my relationship and my love for my grandparents.
Now that's grandparent on. Now that would be which
Yeah,
grandparent? What side?
my papa is on is my mom's dad, and then
Okay.
my grandma is my dad's mom.
Oh, okay. Now, we're gonna bring Steve back in. I don't want to doze off while we're sitting here talking because me and you're just talking a lot of baseball. Steve, tell us a little bit about the two conditions that he highlighted. I mean, a lot of folks know about Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a lot of information out there, but kind of catch everybody up to speed on the other condition because that's like I said when we were chatting originally, I'd never even heard of it, and I
Yeah,
started doing some research on it.
it's a really rare autoimmune disease. So they kind of call it a snowflake disease because everybody's disease, how it affects them, is a little bit different. So when you get to them, they're really like the connection between the nerves and the muscles. There's a gap and there's a fluid in there, and this autoimmune disease prevents the electrical impulses to get to the muscles. So so it's different for everybody. So it's your involuntary control. And Richard, my father-in-law, it really impacted his ability to swallow. So you can imagine that's a significant issue. So he dealt with it for some time, but he was taking medication for it. And then for some reason, 2020, he had an issue, and yeah, wasn't able to recover. So yeah, it's just an autoimmune disease that attacks your involuntary or your voluntary muscles. So whatever you want to do, and it's different for everybody. So.
Right.
So Nate did his glove, and then we did the. If you want to know more, you can go to myasthenia.org. But he did. June was Myasthenia Gravis Awareness Month, and he was able to raise with everybody's contributions. He was able to raise just shy of $2,000 for that cause. So yeah, proud to partner with him, and really proud of what he's been able to do, and he's partnered with them and bringing awareness to myasthenia gravis.
What was the length of time that the both individuals, like what was the length of time that the condition, um, I know it became more severe as it went on. Like what was the length of time from diagnosis until they passed away?
I'd have to think. Richard had. It was early in Nate's life. I mean, he had myasthenia gravis, but with the medication, he was able to he was able to deal with it and lived healthy, was able to eat and everything. I would say at least 10 years.
Okay.
My mom, it's Alzheimer's, dementia. It's difficult. I think she dealt with it for more than 10 years.
Right.
But
Well,
it
I
was,
was curious. I mean, how did she go undiagnosed for quite a while?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
When you look back in retrospect, you go, that was probably
And I think we knew. I mean, I think we knew, but they don't necessarily. My mom was very headstrong. She was very stubborn, so she wasn't one to really listen to what people had to say, especially if it wasn't a message that she didn't really like. So I think she dealt with it for a long time, and then COVID was really tough on her. By that time, she was in memory care, and so she was in assisted living, and they do really well if you can visit them, and we weren't able to see her as much. And actually, Nate was part of. He really got to see the decline there at the end. So,
right. Nate, how old were you when each of your grandparents passed?
I would have been 16, 17, 17,
17, 17, yeah,
17.
Okay. Both passed in the same year.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Richard passed in February, and my mom passed in October. So it was Richard passed right as we were shutting the world down, and my mom was passed right as we were as we were starting to open things up. So,
Nate, there's your biggest fans, huh?
Yeah, that's one thing. Like my papa, he wasn't the biggest baseball guy, but no matter what, he would try to be there and support. And I'd say that my grandma, she's just all you can describe her as is a character. And she really like she would just do whatever you kind of whenever we would go over there, you just kind of do whatever, you know. She you remember I remember just throwing water balloons at each other, or we would have a root beer float. Like she was very much a child at heart, and that's how that's what I really remember going over there is that she made sure that we had a really awesome time when we were with her, and she really supported us as much as she could.
What, Nate? What's the best advice, or that one moment that kind of sticks out in your mind about each one of them, your grandmother and your grandfather?
My grandmother, the moment that sticks out to me was when we were in during the COVID. I saw her the last time, and she broke the COVID protocol to come over and give me a kiss on the cheek. Um, and then my papa, I would just say is one thing that sticks out to me is building little model cars when I was a little kid, and I still have those model cars that we've built. And yeah.
Those are the kind of memories you need to lock onto and hold deep in your heart, because I know grandparents, and that's, let me ask you another question. Is that the loss of both your grandparents, your grandfather and your grandmother, is that like the first big losses from a death standpoint that you've experienced?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I lost a friend in high school, but other than that, I'd say that's yeah. I mean, those were all very hard.
Well, you continue to keep honoring them any way you can, brother. Steve, let me ask you another quick question. I know how hard it was on Nate, but I mean, share with our audience just a minute, watching the decline of you, because that was your mom, that watching that decline. I mean, it was, you said in retrospect, thinking back, I probably remember when it started, but to watch it happen, I know it had to be tough. And I mean, I know he was your father-in-law, but I mean, if you were married for any length of time, he was almost like your father too.
yeah, I mean,
What were those two as an adult? I mean, I'm not saying Nate's not an adult, but he's not old like me, for example.
yeah. So Richard, yeah, I mean, he was the father to somebody that I love dearly. So yeah, he was important to me. No, that was sudden. It was really, really, really sudden. So it was shock. I mean, he had an event on like Monday, and I think by the weekend he had passed. So it happened very quick. My mom, yeah, it was. I would say it started where I really noticed it would have been when we were in Kentucky. So that would have been back in like 2010 maybe. So so it would have been about 10 years. It's a hard disease. She was difficult. She was difficult. It is unkind. I try to focus on the positives. My mom loved me, my sister very much. She certainly loved all four of her grandchildren. She was a great grandmother. So it was good to it was good to have her around with the kids. And she was a Ball State Cardinal. She graduated from Ball State, so she wasn't able to get up there to watch him play, but she was always super proud of Nate.
Well, we won't tell your daughter, since Nate's her favorite grandchild, going to Ball State, making her drink, living vicariously through him on the ball field. So that was just crazy because you said both instances were like 10 years in length. The medicine, you thought was regulating his condition. He sort of had a sudden event and then passed away. And then your mother was more of just a steady decline, because that's how dementia essentially works. You just steadily decline to a point you can't function anymore. So
yeah, that's right.
And
yeah, I mean, with Richard, when he was taking his medication, I mean, we knew he had myasthenia gravis, but
right.
the medicine did a great job of controlling it. So it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't in your face. It wasn't like the kids. They were growing up. They didn't really notice. It didn't. It wasn't noticeable to us. I'm sure. Right. I'm sure. My mother-in-law and he. I think the only time that you'd see him a tear. And that was it. And sometimes at the dinner table, but no, I mean, he was normal. It was, you never thought about it.
Right. Well, I'm glad that Nate had the foresight to be able to do what he did to bring awareness to both these conditions. It kind of puts baseball is life until you realize just how precious life is.
Mm-hmm.
And Nate, I want to commend you for what you did, man. You don't think it was a big deal, but it really was. Because like I said, if I wouldn't have read an article about why you got this weird looking glove on trying to pitch a baseball, and because like I said, I had no idea. I'd never heard of the condition before. You guys had dealt with it for a decade. I mean, you were old hand with it, but I do commend you on your efforts, because you did bring awareness. And like I said, fundraising also was part of that. So, guys, I tell you, I can't thank you guys enough for being on. Like I said, we come on here and talk about baseball and inside the lines and outside the lines. And every now and then those lines blur. And this is a situation where they blurred because, baseball might be the greatest game that has ever been invented, but it doesn't take, a situation like this to make you understand that, baseball is just a game.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it's going to be over. And like I said, life's too precious to put all your eggs in one basket. So that's why I was glad to hear Nate's not an interdisciplinary study guy. I'm glad to see he's focused on after baseball, because we talked about it before we got started. 15 years from now, he's going to throw a baseball till his arm falls off, and he's got to have a plan B. So
yep.
All right, guys, you got any websites or anything you guys want to share? I know before we get out of here, Nate has got to share all of his social media stuff, because he doesn't realize it, but he's a big deal in Start Vegas. So I'll let Steve share I'll let Steve share all that really important, stuff about the conditions and anything like that. And then Nate, you can drop all your social handles for the ladies and
Yeah.
So the for myasthenia gravis, it's myasthenia.org. It's I'll drop in a chat to this so people can get to it,
Okay.
and you can learn more about it, and there's ways to donate there. And then Alzheimer's awareness, it's alz.org.
Okay.
So again, same thing as you can jump in and learn more and donate there. So yeah, those are that was easy.
All right, Nate, let's finish on a high point. Drop your socials so everybody knows how to get in touch with you,
Okay.
especially the ladies.
Well, my Twitter, it's at @dome_Nate. And then my Instagram is at N8, the number 8, _dome. And there you go.
You see, he's downplaying it. He knows he's a big deal on campus. I don't know why he's fighting it though.
I'm just a dude who plays a sport.
Look, man, I'm just excited to hear your arm's okay. I can't wait to see you back out there hurling that thing. 115 guaranteed a national championship. I heard that if you missed it at the beginning of the show, guys, y'all go back and check it out. Like the first 3 minutes, he guaranteed it. So, guys, can't thank you guys enough for being on tonight. I'm glad that we were able to play a small part in the awareness of both these conditions. And can't thank you guys enough for being on tonight.
Thank you.
And
Hail State.
I think say Hail State. I guess we'll see you guys, especially around baseball season.
Yes, sir.
Y'all have a good evening, brother.
Thank you, William.
All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for this evening. We'll see you guys next Sunday. We're going to have a gentleman named Caden Irving. He is a Gaucher High School graduate that is Ole Miss commit. We're going to talk a little bit about his career up to this point. And we're going to talk about his future plans and a few other things that we're going to throw in there. We'll also do a little Q&A to see what he's got going on and anything you guys want to talk to him about. So we'll see you guys next week, the same time, same station, next Sunday. Y'all have a good one.